Okay, hello everyone. Good day and welcome to the Eclipse Foundation quarterly member meeting for June 2016. So my name is Andrea Ross. I'd like to welcome you. I'm sitting here with my colleagues. You can see us in the small screen off in the corner at Eclipse Foundation headquarters in Ottawa, Canada. We have our colleague Ralph Mueller joining us from Germany and Michael Istria joining us as well from France. So we have a fairly full agenda today. So my colleagues Wayne, Ian, Paul, Mike, and others, and Ralph will be talking about our working groups and various operations of the Eclipse Foundation. Michael Istria is joining us to do a top 5 for the new Neon release, and we'll wrap it up at the end with questions and answers. So without any further ado, I'll pass it off to Wayne Beaton, who will be talking about the simultaneous release and projects.
Good morning, good afternoon, hello everyone. Okay, I hit next. Oh, there we go. Oh, right, I was looking at the wrong thing, pardon me. Okay, the Eclipse Neon release, I seem to happen the way it happens every year. There wasn't a lot of panic, everything seemed to go very smoothly. We added almost 4 million new lines of code to the code base. From 84 different projects. The number of contributors was close to 350 or so. Sorry, the number of committers involved was close to 350. The number of contributors, though, has steadily been growing, and we were close to 800 different contributors over the last year with the projects participating in Neon. I actually did a query against our Git index, and it's close to 2,500 people have contributed at least one thing to at least one project that is participating in the Neon simultaneous release since the beginning of time as we record it. I think that's a pretty interesting number. I've been blogging various subsets of that data with some of the names. It's certainly interesting to see how many of our committers today have been involved with the projects for so long. And then it's also interesting to see how many new people have dropped in along the way. It's just exciting to see such a thriving community. There's a couple of links on this page if you're interested in finding out about the Neon release. The official page at the top, eclipse.org/neon. Contains pointers to most of the press information and pointers to the downloads and whatnot. The other 2 links are more for internal. If you're an Eclipse project member, those are links that are probably interesting. You might get some insight into the process from those links as well if you're interested. With the Eclipse Neon release, we added a few projects. I have a little star beside the build ship entry. Build ship actually joined the Mars release, but in one of our midstream releases. I think they joined Mars 1 in, I believe it was September of last year. This is their first, Neon is their first participation in a Prime release. We've also added the new eGarrett project, Eclipse Paho from the IoT project. The Eclipse and More project joined us, and they actually have a package with Android tooling. And More is currently releasing at a 0.5 level. They're still in incubation, so give them some love, and it'd be great to see that grow in strength and stability. EMF Parsley joined us from the growing list of modeling projects that we maintain at the Eclipse Foundation, and of course the Eclipse Tools for Cloud Foundry joined. We had a little bit of a problem with the Window Builder project, and unfortunately they dropped off Neon Prime, but they will be joining with the next release. You should hopefully over the next couple of days be able to find the Window Builder functionality in Eclipse Marketplace. I need to work with the project team to sort that out. Recent process changes for project teams. Last quarter, this isn't new stuff. I just want to let people be aware of it. For new projects now, we only require a single mentor from the Architecture Council. We're augmenting the process of helping projects come up to speed with the addition of a new incubation mailing list, incubation at eclipse.org. I'm happy with the amount of activity on that list and the sort of questions that are being asked. A lot of the questions are being answered by Eclipse Foundation staff members, but a lot more are actually being answered by people in the community. So it's great to see that list bootstrapping itself very nicely, and certainly taking me off the bottle, making me no longer be a bottleneck into getting your answers. I think is really valuable to everybody who's bringing a new project, and I thank those that are participating in that discussion. We also relatively recently, rolled out the permission or the ability for projects that are hosting on GitHub to use GitHub issues. We are starting to run into some interesting challenges with that. We actually some open questions regarding how we implement the security policy on GitHub issues that just came up the other day. I need to sort out start sorting out some answers to that question. And certainly there is a challenge for projects that have multiple GitHub repositories in terms of organizing their issues across the many repositories. I know that's been an interesting challenge. We've seen a little bit of churn over the last few months of projects trying to figure out how to right-size their GitHub repositories. It's really kind of a touchy-feely process. There's really no clear answers, and it really varies on based on a lot of different variables. Coming in 2016, these are things that we are in various states of completeness. Automatically generate a list of third-party dependencies. This is effectively to try to remove the need to create piggyback CQs for third-party dependencies that have already been approved. We actually have a partial solution, which will, I think, my guess is it's going to hit the 80% of project teams. Avoid a lot of piggyback CQs for some project teams. I'm going to be pushing that in the next day or so, and then experimenting with it. This will manifest as a new section in the IP logs. Bug 475-400 is a place to go if you're interested in that activity. We've started a discussion regarding how we might leverage multiple organizations on GitHub. How do we do a single organization per project? Again, that's a discussion that is ongoing right now. Bug 488119. Your input is appreciated on that if you certainly have an interest in that. That's certainly, I think, an area of concern for project teams that have multiple repositories on GitHub. I recently opened up this bug to lighten the burden for projects that do frequent releases. We have a number of projects that move very, very quickly and want to put out a lot of releases over a short period of time. We have some challenges doing that. Certainly the weight of going through a full release review and an IP log check can be burdensome if a project is trying to release every week, especially since we require a 2-week lead time. So that's something, again, it's a discussion that I'm starting, and I would very much appreciate any input you can provide. Next quarter, I'm going to be focusing a lot of attention on our trademark policy guidance that we've started. We have a document today that's in draft that will be rolled into the Eclipse project handbook and the location tech and PolarSys variants of that. With third quarter, we're going to start helping projects ensure that they are conforming properly to the trademark policy. And this will be mostly on web presences and such. So look for that, and I look forward to your angry emails. Contributions continue to rise in general. This is not. This is for all projects. This chart, after we started using Garrett, after we started using the CLA, there was certainly a spike in contribution. I mentioned. Actually, I didn't mention this on the Neon slide. The actual number of committers involved has actually dropped slightly. And by slightly, I mean by like less than 6. I think it's 4 or 5 for Neon itself. But the number of contributors has grown. I interpret this initially, at least at first blush, I interpret this as a success in making it easier to contribute. And I thank the various project teams for actively embracing these contributions as they come, and we're continuing to try and make things a lot easier for contributors. And again, thanks to the project teams for being so helpful in that regard. Just for fun, I thought I'd post a chart of the top projects by contributors. The Eclipse Smart Home project is our leader with in terms of accepting contributions from the community. Xtext is second. Paho, Papyrus, Platform UI. These are great stories. The amount of diversity now going into Platform UI is inspirational. And of course, I pull on, I picked out a handful of them. But if you look at the chart, everything else on the chart is more or less in the same similar numbers. GeoMesa is showing up on this chart. Vorto, Vertex, Donsai, say OMR. I can't remember what OMR is. Oh my goodness.
OMR is not an acronym. It is OMR.
Right, OMR is, yes, okay, good. OMR is a cool project now that I remember that it's not an acronym. You should go and look at the OMR project. I'm not even going to try to explain it. Anyway, just some general reminders to wrap up. For the time being, until we get the work done on lightening the burden for releases, we schedule release reviews every 2 weeks, twice a month, pardon me. On the first and on the third Wednesday of each month is when they conclude, which means I require all of the necessary information 1 week ahead of that date. So please submit your IP log at least the 2 weeks in advance as is required, and get your PMC approval at least 2 weeks in advance. The IP log is probably most critical because as part of that process, I tend to find things, and it would be we need time to mitigate those challenges. We don't tend to find really big problems, but even those little problems can be time-consuming. So getting those in as early as possible is very helpful, and I thank those projects that do that. And I will continue to encourage the projects that don't to do that. Anyway, with that, I am done, and I will pass the token to Andrea.
Great, thanks very much, Wayne. So it's just going to take us a few seconds to switch over to our next speaker. So I'd like to welcome Mikhail. And so Mikhail, let me switch screens here so we can see what you're doing.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, and I'm just switching it. We're doing kind of a fancy setup here at Eclipse headquarters, so I just want to, there we go. So if I did my job correctly, everybody should be seeing your screen now, Mikhail, so take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea and Wayne, for the introduction. What I do here is a quick review of the new features in the Eclipse IDE as part of Neon. So this is a set of features that was presented during Eclipse conference by Sopot Chela and myself. And here it's kind of a faster introduction to all of this. Let me be on the right slide. Okay. So first, let's consider a user starting to want to use the IDE. The first thing to notice as part of the Neon, it's not part of the Neon release, but it's synchronous. It's the fact that there is a new download page that promotes mostly the Eclipse installer. So it's important for everyone to know that the Eclipse installer is going to be the main way people download Eclipse for the future, and to play nice with it and to report bugs if you have some. So yeah, give love to the installer. The download page is pretty cool. Another thing to notice is that when facing the download, the user will see a couple of new packages, one for JavaScript and web development, and one for Android. The Android one is based on more that Wayne introduced a few minutes ago. It's actually working okay for many use cases with Android. Now, a few nice features in the platform that most projects inherit from. The first one is the splash screen, which is very beautiful according to everyone. I agree with them. A second feature would be the workspace launcher, which now has easier easier interfaces for users using links to go to different workspace. A very interesting one is the nicer welcome page when a user starts the IDE. What's interesting with this welcome page is that it's way more accessible than the previous one, and the change was funded by the Friend of Eclipse program. So the money that was given by users and adopters by the Friend of Eclipse program was invested in such features. And another feature that took advantage of the Friend of Eclipse money was the dark theme, which was highly improved during the Neon cycle. So some widgets that were previously unstylable, that remain gray and so on, can now be styled and use dark themes and so on. This theme engine can now be disabled if you're doing an RCP application where you don't want to leverage styling. It's pretty easy to do. It's just a preference, and user can do it by themselves. A new feature which targets end users is the new import wizard. So it's trying to resolve the user story of a user wanted to open an existing project into Eclipse and facing the wizards. It was difficult for users to find out which wizard to select, so we made some improvements regarding the import workflow. I will make a quick demo here. So here what you can see is the Eclipse Neon IDE for Java EE. And let's imagine a user who wants to get started with some project. And now there is a very simple entry in the menu, which is called Open Projects from File System. And user can pick the directory they want. So if I want to work with Eclipse Platform Text, for example, I select Eclipse Platform Text. Okay, come back Eclipse. There you are. And you see that the wizard says, okay, from this folder, I can import this project as Eclipse project, this one as Eclipse project, and so on. So it detects how to import the project. If we get to another example, such as this one, so here, same process. Sorry, that's a small issue. Here you can see that this wizard automatically detects that those are Maven projects. So it's pretty easy for user to just give a directory and not care about how to import. The wizard decided for them. So in order to support Maven import, it means that Maven M2E project had to contribute a strategy to detect and configure projects. If you're doing some projects such as bridge heap or CDT, which have some semantics about a project and who can contribute on how to find a project and how to contribute to it, then it's a good thing to contribute to this wizard. There is an extension point, it's documented, and I can give the link later. And another project will be here. So here you have a map.js project, which is not detected to be an Eclipse or a Maven project. And sorry, if you press finish, it gets imported nonetheless, but the JavaScript nature was detected. So because there were some JavaScript files, it automatically added the JavaScript nature. It's pretty handy for end users. While the IDE is open, I'll stay with it, and I'm going to open some JavaScript file, for example. Here you can see some new features that were introduced in the general text editor. So the first one is the ability to zoom in with Ctrl+ and zoom out with Ctrl-, just like in a web browser, to navigate in the code. It's pretty handy for conferences or where you're far from your screen, or just to see the shape of the code. And another cool one is that, let's assume the code is too wide, like it's the case here. There is now a word warp for editor. So if you just enable word warp, here I use the Ctrl+3 command to toggle the quick actions, but you can find it with some other shortcuts. And with WordWrap, you see the lines are wrapped just as you'd expect. And that has been a feature requested for a long time, and now it's in. Let's get back to the slides. So that was the import. Then I didn't get into detail about the Control-3 shortcuts improvement, but there were some. A very interesting feature that was part of the FIP program, the friend of Eclipse, again, is the autosave of text editor. So that has been requested for a while. Currently, it's out of it is in Neon, but it is disabled by default. So it's up to users to enable it, or up to RCP provider to set the preference. But it allows editor to be saved automatically without hitting Ctrl+S, just like some other IDE do usually. The WordWrap I mentioned, the zoom in and out, I covered it already. A few things about the Java development tools. A very nice thing that was added in Neon for Java development is the substring completion. If you're a developer, it is the feature you are going to like the most daily. You don't have to know the method name to get the completion. It's pretty handy. There was a refactoring to add parameters to add fields for parameter. This is an interesting way to search for multiple reference methods at the same time. It's pretty cool. If you have very similar method, you can look for reference all at once. And there is a Java 9 support, which is already on the track. The link here is to a webinar that was done a few days ago in the webinar series for Neon. I recommend you to have a look if you're interested. There were many changes in the C and C++ development tools that I'm not able to demo, sorry, but if you're interested, just look at the new one for CFCDT. JavaScript development tools are, in my opinion, the main feature of this release. Prior to Neon, it was almost impossible to do some decent JavaScript editing with Eclipse IDE. And now there is a modern parser, there is support for Node.js, NPM, Bower, Grangulp, and so on. So here again, there is a webinar. I'll let you have a look at the webinar for more details. PHP development tools also had major improvements. I cannot get into details because I don't know about PHP at all. But the webinar tells you more. Here again, there is the link that you can find on the eclipse.org/neon page. And something that Eclipse is doing great, better than most other IDEs on that field, is the Docker tools. So there is a Docker file editor, some views to manage your Docker images and so on. That's pretty efficient. And there is support for Vagrant as well. And the webinar, which is linked, can also show you more details about it. Something very interesting, especially if you're a provider of a solution on Marketplace, is the discovery of editor for a given extension. I can quickly demonstrate it. So, sorry. If you import a project and if this project doesn't have support for example, here I'm importing a Python project, but I don't have PyDev, then just opening the Py file, here it opens the default text editor, but in the background, this background, you see that Marketplace was requested on whether there are some extensions to install to better support Py file. So that's pretty handy. I can just click OK as a user, and you'll see, where is my dialog? It's here. And you'll see that the Marketplace dialog pops up and suggests you to install PyDev or Eclipse for a better support for Py file. In this case, here you can see you just have to add a tag to your Marketplace entry to add support for a given file type. So if you are the provider of GoClipse, which has an editor for Go, you just add file extension _ Go to your Marketplace entry, and then it will be available for discovery to all users. Another thing about packaging that may affect you as a provider of solutions is the fact that the IDE moved to a flat packaging, which means that you can now make incremental updates of individual components. So previously, for example, if I'm using the Java EE IDE, I could not update M2E without updating the whole IDE. So I was locked to a specific version of the IDE. With the new packaging, I can very easily say, okay, I want to use a newer version of M2E, okay, like this. And then it will be updated without any issue, and there is no constraint to that. That's actually pretty easy. As Wayne mentioned, we want to enable projects to release more and more frequently. And if we want them to release more and more frequently, they mustn't be stuck to a given IDE version, and that's the purpose of that change. On Marketplace, there are many, many things that have evolved as part of the Neon cycle. I let you get to your favorite entries and check for updates. And the final news about Neon is that there will be a Neon.3. So we used to have a Neon 3 release for a given release train. Now there will be 4, which will allow you to deliver features to end user much faster. That's all I have. That's much more than the top 5. I hope Andrea won't mind. And I give back the mic.
Great, thank you very much, Mika. Let me just switch everything back here, so bear with me, everyone. Wonderful singularity effect. Okay. So I'd like to introduce my colleague, Paul White, who's VP of Membership at the Eclipse Foundation, and Paul's going to talk about membership and conferences.
Great. Thanks, Andrea. Hi, everyone. To begin, let me talk a little bit about the membership. So we are currently, or as of June 15th, I should say, sitting at 245 members, including the 13 strategic members. So thank you very much for all of our strategic members. We definitely appreciate it. And we are sitting at 1,287 committers. So both those numbers are relatively steady numbers and have been over the last 2 quarters or so. Just to show the chart of our membership, which we do on a quarter-by-quarter basis, you'll see that we've been fairly static over the last couple of quarters. We have had some new members join us over the last quarter, and I've listed them here. I won't read through them all, but certainly we appreciate those new members coming on board. We have had a few members who have left as well, and so that's why the numbers are staying, as I say, the total is somewhere in that 245 to 248 number. But certainly, again, thanks to all the new members and welcome. We hope that it's valuable for each of you to participate in the Eclipse Foundation, and anything we can do to help you gain value from your membership, certainly let us know. Within that group, you'll see that a number of them have joined, not just to the membership, but also with our various working groups. So Intercraft, for example, joined in the PolarSys, and Microsoft joining in the IoT community. And so on. So these working groups continue to grow both in their membership and in their activity. And I'll leave it to Andrea and Ian and Ralph to talk about some of the activities that are specific with each of them. But overall, it's the working groups are becoming more and more important to us for our members and for the activities at the foundation. To talk a little bit about our major conferences, we just finished 2 of them. In early May, we ran Phosphor-G, which is driven by our location tech working group, but it also is co-run with OSGeo. It was a very, very successful conference. The numbers were way up year over year, which is great. This community continues to thrive, and the location tech team within this community continues to do really well. We tried some new things, including half talks, which was a new idea that we introduced, 15-minute talks, which were very well received and allowed a number of people to speak for the first time through the conference that wouldn't otherwise have had a chance. The feedback was fantastic, and Raleigh turned out to be a great facility for running it as well. So thanks to the folks in Raleigh for the support. We just had a very successful EclipseCon France 2 weeks ago in Toulouse. Toulouse continues to be a great spot for us to hold this. The community, when they come together, it's just a great experience. The talks were top notch. We introduced this year a full day of tutorials as an experiment. The tutorials themselves were very well received. We ran it at the N7, the NSET facility, which is a nice place to actually do these types of things. And we also ran the Young Conference there as well. So I want to say a particular thanks to our team who drive the logistics, split over 2 different locations in the city. It is a real test, and I think for the people who attended, it really went without a hitch. So thanks to everybody involved. On an upcoming basis, we have our first event in India that we're participating fully in. It's called the Eclipse Summit India. It's running August 25th through 27th in Bangalore. We're expecting somewhere around 400 people to attend this. So the call for papers is closing on June 30th. If you're interested in participating, reach out to this community. It's pretty dynamic. What they're trying to include in this is pretty ambitious, and it should be a fantastic event. EclipseCon Europe is scheduled for October 25 through 27 this year. It's running in Ludwigsburg as we have now for 10 years. We're expecting about 600 attendees, so it should be very well attended. The call for papers is open now. The early bird for that is June 30th, and the final date is July 18. So please, by all means, submit your papers to it. There's always a lot of competition in terms of the papers, but please get it in as soon as you can. We're also running, as part of this, we'll have the IoT Day, which we did last year very successfully, so we'll continue with that, as well as the Project Quality Day. So yeah, it's continues to grow and be one of our great events. We announced 2 weeks ago that the Eclipse Foundation has entered into an agreement with Devox to run Devox United States. So Devox is well known in Europe. There are 5 different events that are run throughout Europe. It started in Antwerp and now runs in London and Paris. The event in Krakow is going on right now as we speak, and one in Morocco. So we are bringing this to the U.S. This is a fantastic opportunity for developers. So it's not just the Eclipse community, but it's actually for the broader developer community. We're intending to have about 200 technical talks at this across 10 tracks, and the tracks are very broad in terms of the subject areas. We're expecting 1,000 or more to attend this. So we're certainly encouraging everyone within the Eclipse community to look at this as an event to participate and to show what we have to the broader development community. One thing of note, because it's come up in a number of questions, Devox has traditionally been very community-driven with their local jugs who are involved, and we're going to run it the same way. So we've already engaged with the Silicon Valley jug and the San Francisco jug, and we're now in the process of reaching out to jugs all across North America to actively participate. This is from a volunteer point of view, in promotion, and having their members attend, and so on. So that's a place that you may want to look as well to get engaged. As part of this, we've committed to running a Devox for Kids, and in fact, Wayne is going to lead the activities from the foundation's point of view. These are fantastic events. It's been over the years. There's been, I think it's close to 7,000 kids now have been involved in these. They're a day that are held on the weekend as a way to introduce software development to teenagers. So if you'd like to participate, reach out by all means, and we'll engage. As part of this, so this is, I should have said, Devox is running March 21 to 23 in San Jose. As part of this, we are going to have a one-day Eclipse Converge event the day before, so on March 20. And so the intent really for our community is that we're treating this as a 4-day conference. The first day will be Eclipse Converge, which is dedicated exclusively to the Eclipse community and our technologies, and it rolls to a broader Devox 3-day event, which will have Eclipse content mixed in with others throughout that 3 days. The call for papers, it's a little bit confusing. The call for papers for Devox will be opening September 1st, and the call for papers for Eclipse Converge will open in November. So they are being treated, there's 2 separate program committees with a different focus for each of these 2 conferences. But together, we think that 4 days will represent a fantastic opportunity for our community. And that's it for me. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul. All right, this is Ian Scarrett. I'm going to go through the Internet of Things working group. So we have a new project proposal called Eclipse Kapua. This is actually a proposal that came in from Eurotech, who's actually been behind our Cura project. Kapua is all about basically defining and providing code to an IoT server platform. So Cura is on the gateway, but a gateway has to talk to a back end. And Kapua is actually the Eurotech's cloud services that they have today for their commercial offering. And so they're proposing that they're going to open source that at Eclipse. So this is actually a huge opportunity for us. There's lots of people offering IoT cloud platforms. There's none that I know of that are offering open source ones. So it's a great opportunity. We also did a press release around 4 new releases, or actually 6 new releases from this, but there's 4 major releases and then 2 minor maintenance releases. So we did a press release on, actually it was June 16th, we delayed it for 2 days to kind of let the release reviews pass. But PAHO, Cura, Smart Home, and OM2M all did major releases, and so we did the press release and got some really nice coverage. I believe we've got 5 articles written. Neoscat and Mosquito did maintenance releases too. So it's a good community outreach activity and getting kind of awareness for what we're doing in the IT working group. We have created a new download page. Sorry, this is a bit hard to see, but if you go to iot.eclipse.org/projects, basically the Eclipse IoT working group is now over 24 projects, so it's getting to be quite a big community. So we wanted to make it easier for people to find kind of relevant downloads. And so this is sorted by alphabetically or by number of downloads, kind of popularity. In April, earlier this year, we did an IoT developer survey. And this is the 2nd year we've done this to really kind of start to understand what developers are doing around IoT. This year, we actually did it in collaboration with IEEE IoT and our EU research project called Agile IoT. So I wanted to kind of just briefly go through some of the highlights of this. The whole survey is available online. You can find it from iot.eclipse.org. So some of the key findings from this survey were basically people are delivering solutions today. So close to half are delivering solutions today. Another 29% are expected to deliver in the next 18 months. So there's lots of hype around IoT, but there's lots of activity and lots of kind of real stuff being built in this area. One of the challenges with IoT is that it's massive. It expands basically all industries. And so what are the top industries that people are focused on? No surprise that IoT platforms are kind of core middleware came up number 1 in our survey. But then home automation, industrial automation, energy management, connected cities are kind of the next areas. And this doesn't surprise me. Kind of a mixture of kind of what goes on in the general IoT industry. Home automation is huge. Industrial automation is huge. And certainly within our community, we have a home automation project, and we have lots of industrial automation companies like Bosch focused in this area. So not terribly surprising. We asked what are the concerns of the developers. And again, this is consistent with last year, but security is always a concern. Interoperability, so how do you kind of work with outside of your silo application in IoT is a huge industry concern, which actually I think some of the stuff we're doing within Eclipse is helping to solve. And connectivity, just kind of making sure, and again, we're helping to solve some of that. How do you make sure your connectivity is easy to do with all the different networking protocols and device protocols, but also how do you manage latency, network latency, for instance. And something like Eclipse Cura does a good job helping with that. Some other findings, so we asked what are the programming languages, and this is pretty consistent to what I see in other industries, so Java, JavaScript, C, and Python. It certainly depends on what tier you're talking about. I think next year we're going to kind of start to ask, okay, on the device, on the gateway, on the platform, what are you using to kind of do a bit more refinement here. But IoT is very much polyglot. There's lots of different languages being used. Messaging protocols is an important topic in our community because we have a lot of MQTT people. And again, what we see is that MQTT and straight up HTTP are the dominant messaging protocols being used. Certainly, I think we've seen, and I think we can take a lot of credit for a lot of the MQTT success, where when IBM and Eurotech made the decision to take the MQTT spec to Oasis as a standard and open source it at Eclipse PAHO, if you do a Google Trends chart, it just takes off. So Eclipse PAHO and Mosquito, Eclipse Mosquito are some of our more popular projects, so we've got a large community there. Operating systems, so Linux is definitely the dominant one here, and nothing else comes close. Again, not very surprising. Again, this is a question that kind of asking about the tiers. Certainly on an MCU, on a very small sensor, you're probably not running Linux. You're probably running either bare metal or as kind of a small RTOS like Kentucky or Riot. On kind of the back end, we have about cloud services. Amazon's there's kind of I would expect Amazon to show up. Private cloud was number 2, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised in many ways to see Microsoft Azure show up here. Microsoft just joined the Eclipse Foundation as a member, and I think we're seeing nice crossover between IoT and Azure. And then just participation in kind of an open IoT ecosystem. So 58% are actively participating in open source IoT projects, and 52 are using open hardware, or kind of easily accessible hardware like a Raspberry Pi or a BeagleBone or an Arduino device. So moving beyond kind of the survey, Benjamin and myself did a lot of work around events this past quarter. So we attended the IoT World event in Santa Clara, which is was definitely the largest IoT specific show that we attend. And my guess is it's probably one of the largest in globally. They had over 10,000 attendees. We had a booth there that was just constantly busy. The nice thing is that there's actually was a lot of awareness already of our community, so people are coming up already knowing about us and wanting to get more details. But obviously, we're also kind of being introduced to new. So it was a very good event for us. We also went to OSCON, and we're showing off IoT. We're also showing the Eclipse chain, same Eclipse Foundation booth. Frankly, OSCON was less IoT aware than attendees, but there's a ton of interest in Eclipse chain. So kind of a different topic, but just an interesting point of interest. I'm not going to go into detail on the IoT stats. If people are interested, we keep pretty close track of how our projects are kind of developing their community around bugs, code authors, and forum posts. Now, you're interested, so this is monthly checks stats. So we actually have to update this chart because basically all of our Eclipse IoT projects have moved from Bugzilla to GitHub issues. And that kind of shows up here where very few have open bugs, right? But if you go to kind of the pull requests and issues, right, you see kind of the activity has moved to GitHub and GitHub issues. So it's kind of an interesting kind of observation in terms of how fast this community has moved over and continues to engage with the community. And then here are the yearly stats. So we need to kind of update these. We keep track of kind of website traffic, bit of a slowdown. I think kind of with some of the press announcements and some of the activities we're doing, we'll continue to see this go up. But we continue to see lots of interest in the community. Again, the downloads numbers continue to go up. We had that one spike. Not quite sure what happens there, but like kind of 20,000 downloads a month for PAHO and over 10,000 for Mosquito. It's a very successful project and they're doing really well in terms of adoption. Logic Code continues to do well. So that's it for us. For IT, I'll pass it back over to Andrea.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrea Ross. So I'm responsible for the Foundation's Location Tech and Science working groups. I'll start with Location Tech. So Location Tech just celebrated its 3rd birthday, and it's, as Paul mentioned earlier, a lot of our working groups are growing very quickly, and Location Tech and Science as well are no exception to that. So as part of that growth, one of the exciting things is we've just hired a developer advocate for Location Tech. Sophia Aldrich, who has a considerable amount of experience in open geospatial and open data, has joined and is working very closely with me to help our projects and our community outreach and these kinds of things. So I'm really jazzed to have her on the team. It's nice. We've been quite busy for a long time, so it's nice to be able to continue to grow and do the things that we're doing to service the community. So here's just a quick glimpse of the members. So the group in its 3rd birthday has actually grown. We're just flirting with 20 members and 20 projects, which is a nice growth. Had a couple of members leave. So Mousebird Consulting has left most recently, but for the most part, our members that have come and stayed. And we have a few more significant members that we'll see in the weeks ahead. So. The other exciting thing is, so in 2013, we did something we called the Location Tech Tour. It was a federated series of community events in cities around the world. So the first one was very North American focused down the East Coast. And it was, I'd say, certainly popular, probably even maybe more popular than we expected. So we continued to do it, and it grew considerably in 2014. So we're continuing to do the Location Tech Tour. So 2016, it looks poised to be the biggest yet. We're expecting somewhere in excess of 15 events. So for those who are interested in these events, they're typically a couple different formats. One is an evening event. So it's an opportunity for people to see a series of short talks on projects and initiatives around open source geospatial and open data. Often location tech projects, but it's also open and welcome to other projects and other initiatives as well. We all sometimes have a full day format, so we basically do a 9 to 5 conference, and often there's a reception after that. We've also done code sprints and hackathons, and those have been very popular as well. Slightly different goals, so more of a deep dive into the code and trying to get things done, and in some cases welcome newcomers and get them productive in the code base. So if you're interested, I encourage you to check out tour.locationtech.org, join the Location Tech mailing list. You can ask about it there, or reach out to Thea or myself, and we'd be glad to help you get involved in the tour this year. The Science Working Group. So Science is also a very fast-growing working group. So Location Tech is focusing on open source geospatial software and sort of all things spatial. Science Working Group is focusing on sort of data analysis, visualization, simulation. So very complementary to other groups like the Location Tech group and Science group, but very focused on scientific research. So, so a quick glimpse of the members. So far this year, Kichwa Coders has stepped up to join the steering committee, so we're very pleased with that. Tracy Miranda has been a really active participant in the group for some time, so we're really glad to have her as part of the steering committee. Open Analytics joined earlier in the year, so it's nice to have them on board as a new member. And we have, hopefully you can see it in the live stream, the text is pretty small. So we've had a number of new projects come in recently, so Rich Beans in January and Triquitrum, and there's a new one called Static, which is from Open Analytics, basically, which is tooling for working with the R language, which is really quite exciting. So recently at Eclipse Conference, I got to see Tobias demo the feature set that it provides. It's quite exciting, so we're really glad to have them join. The proposal just went up for that one in the last couple of days. So it's my pleasure to service both these groups, and there's a great bunch of people involved. So that's it for me. I'm going to do the slide advancing for my colleague Ralph. So Ralph, if you'd like to unmute and let me know when you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Super, something works. That's great. So my name is Ralf Müller. I work for the Eclipse Foundation in Europe. My job is to help the European Eclipse ecosystem grow. Also with Paul together organize EclipseCon Europe and help projects to find their way to Eclipse. I'm today reporting about Polasis, which should, in the next meeting, definitely be done by the Polasis folks themselves, and we will try to organize it. So just a brief update. We were glad that Saab Defense joined the Polasis steering committee just this quarter, and we also, as a steering committee member, and we're also glad that TM Forum and University Oberta of Catalonia, that's in Spain, joined the Polasis working group. They are a fantastic addition to the model-driven environment. Next slide, please. In April of this year, we have learned, and that happens to our working groups, they become more mature and they want to take the leadership into their own hands. So the leadership has now changed to the Polasis steering committee, and the EMO, so the Eclipse Management Organization, has become a service provider to this group, and we work closely together to get all the things done, conference participation, website updates, new IT that they need, and so on, to get it up in time and in budget so that the group can continue to work. Next slide, please. Next slide. Hello. Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yeah, Ralph, I can hear you, but I don't know about Andrea.
Oh, I think the Eclipse Foundation has faded out. Okay, so maybe we have to wait until they come back with their live stream.
Hey, Ralph, if you can hear me on this one, I just switched to a different laptop. Unfortunately, our presenting computer is starting to hang, so bear with me. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm almost finished. Just a quick remark about two Polasis projects. One is the Polasis rover. It's a fun activity to participate in. We have assembled a lineup of hardware, and people are inspired, or hopefully inspired, to participate in creating the next Mars rover. Just kidding. But it's it's a Raspberry Pi based hardware, so we are just about to submit the initial contributions to the project, and then we are trying to use the different Polasis solutions to build a system based following the model-driven development approach. The second one is about Papyrus for XTUML, just another addition to the Papyrus platform. By the way, talking about the Papyrus platform, just recently a group of organizations, including Ericsson, Airbus, Saab, have founded the Papyrus IC industry consortium within the Polasis working group. Sorry, Polasis working group. Too many short words for me. And what we see is that this group is taking up speed more, hopefully in the next members meeting by Francis Bordelot, who is the speaker of the steering committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. So I'm going to pass it to Ian Scarrett, who's going to talk about marketing. Now, I apologize to folks who are watching. You might have noticed a few hiccups. So our machine that we were using for presenting just crashed in the middle of this. So we're actually switching to a different one. Hopefully our audio is half decent. So.
You want me to move closer?
Yes, please, if you would, Ian. And take it away when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay. So does the clicker still work?
Yeah, the clicker still works. Yeah.
So so just to give you a brief marketing update. We actually spent a lot of work, and I used we, the raw we, because the IT team was heavily involved in this, but we spent some time working on a new download page. And this really came from the board, where the board has been kind of directing us to be more egalitarian and more kind of reflect the diversity of the Eclipse community. And if you look at our old download page, it basically was very focused on the existing Eclipse platform and the IDs and packages around the Eclipse platform. It didn't reflect any of the new working groups like location tech, science, IoT. It didn't reflect projects like Jetty or Vertex that we've had for a long time.
Let me just do this 1 second. We're going to switch back to the other computer. Sorry, Ian.
There we go. We're back in business. So sorry about that, everybody.
All right. Yes. So we wanted to basically reflect more the diversity of the Eclipse community. And so at the same time, the nice thing about the old download pages, it was pretty simple to use. It was kind of a bit large with the number of packages, but it was pretty clear that if you were looking for the Eclipse platform or Eclipse Java ID or Eclipse CDT, C++ ID, right, it was pretty clear. So it's kind of balancing all those different demands for the download page. So we came up with a new one that featured 4 sections, a kind of tools platform, runtime platform, communities, and all projects. We sent it up for community feedback. We've got quite a bit. Lots of people liked the design. Some people weren't thrilled with some of the wording, specifically around how to refer to the existing, kind of what I would call the Eclipse Classic platform. And I'm not sure if we've got a long-term solution for that yet, but our compromise was around just calling it Neon. So this is a picture, a screenshot of a version of this. It's changed slightly since I took this, but this is live, and so you can see it today. I imagine this will evolve over the next couple of months as we get more and more feedback. But I think it's an important step forward in terms of showing the diversity that we have in the Eclipse community. And I think down the road, it will actually benefit all of us to really kind of illustrate that Eclipse is 300 different projects, right? And a lot of them, and it's very technology agnostic, and we are a community of communities. The other thing that we spent a lot of time on in terms of marketing is around the launch. So we did a press release yesterday for the Neon launch. We've also organized a series of 7 webinars around different projects that are participating in Neon and highlighting them. We've started a campaign around Friends of Eclipse that you can buy. If you donate $50, you get a Neon t-shirt. It's a special edition Neon t-shirt. And we're doing some extensive social media around Neon, which is working out really well. There's lots of nice chatter on the different social media channels, specifically Twitter and Facebook around Neon. So it's going well. I think this is probably one of the nicest launch pages we've had in a long time. We really challenged the team to kind of use the Neon theme and be cool with it. You can't see it, but the N will fade in and out like a neon sign. So it's been pretty. I've been really pleased with this. Yeah, I think we've talked about the 2 press releases already, so I won't go into those. Just in general, from social media, we track our stats. We're going to try and get better at tracking the stats and the impact of our social media outreach for that. But we continue to grow these channels and kind of continue to try and have them as channels to promote our projects and what our members are doing. Our monthly newsletter continues to do really well. We just published one this week. We actually start today around some of the neon projects, and July will be focused around neon too. So it's another good program that continues to do well. And I'm pleased to announce we actually hired a new person for the marketing team, Kat Hirsch, who joined us in April, I believe. And so she's kind of been incredibly valuable in terms of adding a lot of capacity and new ideas to the marketing team. So it's great to have Kat on board. And that's it. I'll turn it over to Mike.
All right. Thanks, Ian. And just before Mike gets started, I just wanted to remind folks, if you want to ask a question about any of the topics, you can tweet it with the Eclipse NM tag. You can email it to me. Normally I say post it in the IRC channels, but don't, because I can't, because my laptop's being used for this presentation right now. So either tweet them or email them to me, and then we'll take them after Mike's section. So take it away, Mike.
All right, thank you very much, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And hopefully, I think I'm the last speaker, so I'll try to get through this fairly quickly. Although I do have a couple of things that I think people will be very interested in hearing about. So the 2 things I'm going to talk about is the financial update, and I think one of the things that, again, people will be most interested in hearing about is the board in our last meeting approved in principle a number of IP process revisions that we're going to be putting through over the next months and quarters, and I think that's going to have a very positive impact on the Eclipse community, and I just wanted to share that with everybody. So first, on financial update. So the 2016 budget, this is really nothing new here since the last time we spoke. The projection is that our revenue will come in at around $5.5 million and expenses around $6 million. If you go back to 2015, we projected originally a similar shortfall. It came in at exactly a break-even result at the end of 2015. Of course, we are going to strive to do that in 2016 as well. One of the reasons why the expenses are going up, as you noticed, there was a couple of new hires, and we are planning on significantly growing the Eclipse Foundation staff through 2016. So that's where some of that expense is going. All right, IP process revisions. As people, I'm sure everybody who's listening in is aware, the IP process at Eclipse is one of the key differentiators of the Eclipse community. But the time has come to do a major overhaul on how we do our IP process for our Eclipse projects. So talk a little bit about what we're planning on doing here and what our goals are is we want to make it a lot easier for a project to come to Eclipse and be fully operational within a short time. And by a short time, now we'll see whether or not we get here, but ideally I'd like to have a project operational within a week of starting. And by operational we mean the code's checked in, the builds are running, downloads are available from an eclipse.org or working group server. And so really make it a lot nicer, for lack of a better word, to kick off a new project at Eclipse. And we need to, as part of that, we need to reduce the amount of time that's we're spending by the staff and the project teams on IP due diligence as an overall percentage of the work that's happening. And take the IP due diligence off the critical path of getting started. Next point, ensuring the IP team is spending time on projects that actually want their services, because not every project in the open source community wants to have the level of IP due diligence that we have been doing historically. And then sort of along the same kind of lines, make sure that the resources that we're allocating, both from the sides of the project team itself, and from the staff, are being invested by organizations that value that work rather than every single project within the, say, Eclipse, Location Tech, and Polaris communities. Because right now the process that we have clearly benefits the consumers of technologies, but doesn't always provide benefit to the producers of the technology that's being built in these projects. So try to realign the sort of the rewards with the investment. So the proposal is that we'll have 2 levels of IP due diligence, and that the existing processes will be there for all projects that want them, and we'll call that, for lack of a better, like right now we're calling it level 1, level 2. I'm pretty sure that those names won't be the final names. I'm not exactly sure what we'll end up calling them, but think of them as, you know, basic and professional, or level 1 or level 2, and then we'll see where this ends up. But level 2 is what we have today. So the IP team runs the scan tool, checks the provenance for all dependencies. The idea is that level 1 is a new level where all of the existing processes that we have in place for managing the code that's built at Eclipse will continue to exist exactly as is. What's new is that the work that is being currently done on all of the dependencies will differ substantially and be reduced substantially. So we're still looking for exactly what the right tool is, but and hopefully we'll be able to find one. But the main idea is that projects will be able to use a tool to self-certify that their dependencies have compatible and permitted licenses. So it's really about license compliance as instead of the provenance checking that we've done historically. So once a project is validated that all of its licenses, the licenses of all of its dependencies, are actually compliant, they can go ahead and check in their code and get started as a project at Eclipse. And that's quite a bit different and quite a significant reduction from where we are today. It's important to note that even this level 1 that we're talking about still provides a significant level of due diligence. So all of the code that's being done at Eclipse is going to continue to be tracked and monitored exactly the way it is today, which is quite a substantial amount of effort. License compatibility will be checked and validated, and that's another second thing that's very important. So we're still going to be fulfilling our brand promise, if you will, of delivering high-quality software for commercial reuse, but doing a significant reduction in the amount of effort on the provenance checking that's going on, and so that projects can realign based on their needs and the needs of their communities and their adopters. So each project will be able to select the level of due diligence they want. So it will be a project level decision. And the proposal at the moment is that it will actually be the project lead or leads that are responsible for selecting the level of due diligence. We'll track all of this through the metadata, and definitely one of the big implications for this in terms of implementation is that a significant amount of work is going to have to happen by the staff of the foundation to enhance the project management infrastructure and our other systems to track this, to track which level projects are at, and be able to present that to users and adopters. One of the big things is if a consumer of a project wants a greater level of IP review, they're not going to be able to force a project to do that. The only way that they're going to be able to get a project to sort of up their game in terms of IP due diligence is to contribute to that project, and whether that contribution comes in the form of money or the project or in the form of committers on the project. In either case, it's going to rebalance the energy going into IP due diligence between the producers and the consumers. So if a consumer feels that the provenance checking is absolutely fundamental to their needs, they can still approach the project and try to get the project to do that work, but obviously they're going to have to invest directly in that project to make it happen. And then the last point is we have this repository called Orbit, which does maintain libraries which have been IP checked, and the contents of Orbit will continue to contain only those libraries that have completed the full Eclipse IP review. So there's no change there either. So what does this mean for new projects? So projects could start the way that they do today, and with what we're calling level 2 due diligence and so on. But we expect that most projects would start with level 1, and then if they want to, and they can increase the level of due diligence as they mature. The biggest advantage to that is that it's going to make the creation of a new project at Eclipse a lot faster and with fewer hurdles to get through the initial process to actually be able to build and release software from the Eclipse Foundation. So it's very much an expected use case that a project will start at level 1 when it enters incubation, and then perhaps choose to go to level 2 at a later date. But there's no requirement that that be the case, and a project could stay at level 1 for their entire life cycle. It's really up to the project itself to decide what is appropriate for them, their community, and their adopters. So how is this going to unfold? So definitely patience is going to be required here. I think a lot of people are going to be pretty excited about this, and will want us to get going right away. But there are some still a significant amount of work to make this happen. But the first thing, which is approval in principle from the board, has been accomplished. That was done in our board meeting in Ottawa last week. So that was something that we were very, very happy to see. But for this to come to unfold, we need to actually make a new version of our IP policy, and so that's going to take some time. I'm kind of hoping that we'll get that done with the board by, say, September, and then after that we'll be going into implementation. And before we can completely roll this out, we're going to need to have work done, as I said, by the staff on the things like the project management infrastructure and so on, to make sure that we're doing this properly and that the process is seamless for both existing projects at Eclipse and new projects. So we're pretty excited about this, and we think this is a major step forward for the Eclipse community, and I think this is going to have a lot of very positive implications for projects at Eclipse and also with the Location Tech and PolarSys communities as well. So with that, I want to thank everybody for paying attention. This has been actually a fair bit of content, and I think it's gone really well. We'll throw it over for questions and answers, but just in case there aren't any, just want to throw out there that I hope everybody has a great summer period and has a chance to have a vacation with their friends and family. I know I am, and look forward to talking to everybody in the fall.
Cool, thanks Mike, and thanks everyone for speaking today, and for those who either watched it live or are watching the recording after the fact. So I just had a quick check of my email and a quick check of the Eclipse MM hashtag on Twitter. I don't see any questions at the moment. That doesn't mean there won't be any after the fact, so if you're interested, feel free to comment on the video in YouTube, and I'll relay the question to the right person, and we'll respond appropriately. So with that, I think we're done, and I'm going to shut things down. So thanks very much, everybody, and take care.